Stone Age. Before cities, before pyramids, before history had names, there was the Stone Age. It all starts with survival. Early humans made stone tools to hunt and cut animals for food and to survive. And then came fire. It was an absolute game changer. It cooked meat, scared predators, and lit up dark caves. These weren't just grunts and sticks. This was the beginning of human creativity. They painted on walls deep in caves bison, hands, and hunts. Why? Maybe for ritual, maybe for memory. Either way, art was born. Communities formed. People began to bury their dead with care. That means beliefs, maybe even religion. And something even more impressive happened: agriculture. Around 10,000 BCE, humans in regions such as the Fertile Crescent China and Mesoamerica had an idea. And they started planting seeds. They domesticated animals. This was the Neolithic Revolution. People stopped wandering. They built huts, formed villages, invented pottery, stored food, and the population exploded. But the Stone Age wasn't just about rocks and spears. It was the moment humanity stood up, looked around, and decided to build a world. So, how did it end? On metal. Copper came first, then bronze. With metal came better tools, weapons, and the first real cities. The Stone Age didn't crash. It evolved. It was the longest era in human history, which stretched back 2.5 million years. And though it moved slowly, it laid every foundation for what came next. From sparks and stones came civilizations, pyramids, empires, and everything else. This is where it all began. Bronze Age. Around 3300 BCE, something shiny changed the game. Bronze! A mix of copper and tin made stronger weapons, sharper tools, and better armor. Suddenly, power wasn't about size, it was about tech. And with bronze came cities. Big, walled cities with soldiers, rulers, and scribes. Egypt built pyramids. Mesopotamians raised ziggurats. The Indus Valley had urban planning, straight streets, drainage systems, and even public baths. On the other hand, the Chinese Shang dynasty cast massive bronze bells and ritual vessels. Trade boomed. From Britain to India, people were moving in, ideas, art, and wheat across continents. Writing systems popped up: cuneiform in Mesopotamia, hieroglyphs in Egypt, and oracle bones in China. This was the start of recorded history, but it wasn't all peace and progress. Kings wanted more, so armies grew, fortresses rose, and chariots rolled into battle. The Bronze Age became the first age of empires and war. So, how did it end? It is a mystery. Around 1200 BCE, it all collapsed. Cities burned, scripts vanished, and civilizations crumbled from Greece to Mesopotamia. Some blame invasions. Others say droughts, earthquakes, or systems are just getting too complex. It's called the Bronze Age collapse, and it's still one of history's great mysteries. What we do know is this: the Bronze Age lit the spark of civilization. It gave us kings, cities, and writing. And then it vanished, leaving behind ruins, myths, and questions. Iron Age. The Bronze Age crumbled. Then came iron, and history shifted gears. By 1200 BCE, people started forging iron. It wasn't shiny like bronze, but it was stronger, more common, and didn't need rare tin. Suddenly, anyone could have weapons, not just elites. Empires rose again. In the Middle East, the Assyrians built a war machine, iron swords, cavalry, and siege towers. They ruled with terror and tactics. In India, the Vedic culture grew. Iron plows fed more people, and kingdoms spread. Meanwhile, in China, the Zhou dynasty refined iron tools and weaponry, shaping a new age of farming and warfare. And in Europe, Celtic tribes made fierce iron blades and built hill forts across the landscape. Iron changed how people fought, farmed, and built. It leveled the playing field. This was also the age of legends. The Greeks built city-states and wrote epics like the Iliad. The Romans were rising. The Persians built roads and ruled with strategy, not just steel. And in Africa, kingdoms like Nubia forged their own powerful iron cultures. So what happened? The Iron Age didn't collapse like the Bronze Age. It evolved. Iron tools led to better farming. Bigger farms fed bigger cities, and bigger cities became empires. This age didn't just shape history, it sharpened it. The Iron Age is when myth met metal. When the ancient world became sharper, stronger, and ready for what came next. Classic Antiquity. This is the age of philosophy, democracy, and empires. It was roughly between 800 BCE to 500 CE, and it all starts in Greece. Small city-states like Athens and Sparta pop up. They argue, they fight, and they build. Athens invents democracy. Not a perfect one, but revolutionary. Socrates questions everything. Plato records his ideas, and Aristotle becomes the tutor of Alexander the Great. Meanwhile, Greek art, math, and architecture went global through Alexander, who spread Hellenistic culture from Greece to Egypt to India. Then came Rome. It was first a republic, then an empire. They built roads, aqueducts, stadiums, and laws that still echo today. Latin spreads. So do Roman ideas of citizenship, warfare, and governance. It was the age of Caesar, Augustus, and other emperors who ruled the known world. In the east, Persia thrives. Later, India saw the Maurya and Gupta empires flourish. Math, medicine, and Buddhism expand. In China, the Han dynasty became a powerhouse of bureaucracy, trade, and invention. And let's not forget, this is when Christianity begins, slowly reshaping the spiritual map of the West. So, what brought it all down? The empire grew too large, too complicated, and too divided. Rome split. Barbarian tribes invaded, and trade networks broke down. By the 5th century CE, the Western Roman Empire had collapsed. But the ideas, they didn't vanish. They just went underground, waiting to be discovered. Classical antiquity didn't just shape history, it laid the foundation for modern science, politics, and philosophy. It was more than an era. It was the blueprint for everything that came after. Middle Ages. Rome falls, and Europe shrinks into itself. Welcome to the Middle Ages, roughly the 5th century AD to the 15th century AD. For some, it was the Dark Ages. Plagues, invasions, and a whole lot of castles. But not everything was gloomy. The Church takes control as the central authority. Monks spend years copying books by candlelight, preserving what knowledge they can. Knights head out on crusades, fighting holy wars across continents. And feudalism? Think of it like a giant human pyramid, with kings at the top and peasants at the bottom, farming the land in exchange for protection. Meanwhile, outside of Europe, the world is wide awake. Islamic empires in the Middle East are preserving ancient texts and advancing in math, medicine, and astronomy. China was under powerful dynasties. They invented gunpowder, perfected printing, and built vast cities. In Africa, great trading hubs like Timbuktu flourished with gold, books, and scholars. The world is moving forward, but Europe just hit pause. But then, the gears start turning again. The Black Death wipes out millions, shaking the very foundations of society. Labor becomes scarce, peasants push for rights, and cities expand. Trade made a comeback. In Italy, a spark ignites. There are new ideas in art, science, and learning. The Renaissance is on its way. The Middle Ages weren't just about castles and catastrophes. They were a slow-burning setup for the modern world. Early Modern Age. The early modern era kicks off with big ships and bold explorers. Columbus crosses the Atlantic. Trade boomed and colonies rose. Back home, Europe is in flux. Martin Luther sparks the Reformation. Kings clash, and new ideas challenge old powers. The printing press spreads knowledge like wildfire. Meanwhile, the scientific revolution rewrites the universe. There were scientists like Copernicus, Galileo, and Newton. People begin to question everything. By the 1700s, Enlightenment thinkers talked about liberty, reason, and rights. The world is waking up, and it's about to get loud. Late Modern Age. The late modern era is a time of speed and revolution. Here comes the industrial, political, and social revolution. Steam engines are used to power machines that make goods faster than ever. People crowd into factories, and kids work too. But movements rise. Workers strike, women march, and nations rebel. America gains power. Europe builds empires. Science exploded, and there were electricity, vaccines, and X-rays. But with all this growth also comes conflict. World wars tear nations apart. By 1945, the world was exhausted, grieving, and ready for a reset. Contemporary Age. The era after World War II is the contemporary era. The world rebuilds. The Cold War splits it in two, but progress doesn't stop. Television sets make their way into every home. Rock and roll shakes up culture. Civil rights movements fight for equality. And mankind reaches the moon for the first time. Then came computers, the internet, and globalization. People live longer, travel further, and speak to anyone, anywhere. Now AI writes poems. Robots are becoming capable of performing surgery, and climate change is becoming the next big fight. We are more connected and more overwhelmed than ever. We started to build the modern era with steam and steel. Now we're rewriting it with code and curiosity. And the next chapter, it's being written by you and many more like you.